Alright, I am going to explain how my copyright assignment for my students meets each part of the Assure model. Okay, so what is the Assure model? I went ahead and took this from the textbook. The Assure model is designed to help teachers plan lessons that effectively integrate classroom use of technology and media. And then I re-put what each of those letters mean. And so now I'm going to go through each of those letters. Okay, so A, analyze learners. So that's looking at their the general characteristics. This is I designed this for 7th graders, so that would be 12 to 13 years old, and it would be co-ed. It would be a mix of girls and boys. There would be a mix of gender in there. Determining the needs, I was thinking of an entry ticket for the lesson as students came into the library before we actually went into the copyright lesson, of asking them what is copyright law and what do you already know about it, right? Leaving it open to be like, it's okay if you write, I don't know, because that lets me know where they're starting. But if they do know something about it, right? Like, oh, it has something to do with someone owning something, right? Anything like that. Or even like, it's a federal law, whatever, kind of figuring out whatever their basal prior knowledge is. And then differentiation or learning preferences. I will offer a paper option of the assignment for students without computers or who cannot type. For whatever reason. Students have the option to add as many resources they want to. There's no maximum. That's really good for those gifted and talented students that may want to add more than one resource and challenge themselves, or any kind of student that needs enrichment. And then students can add all different kinds of media. They can do music, art, pictures, literature, videos, whatever kind of learning style there is. Their audio, their auditory, their visual. They can create a list of resources that all different kinds of people with different learning environments can use. All right, then next letter S, state standards and objectives. So I took the state curriculum standard from TEKS on the TEA website. So this is one that could actually be for technology applications for a 7th grade class. One of the TEKS is digital citizenship. The student practices safe, responsible, legal, and ethical behavior while using technology tools and resources. The student is expected to, and under that, the subscript A is understand and practice copyright principles, including current laws, fair use guidelines, Creative Commons, open source, and public domain. And we talk about copyright laws and principles, we talk about fair use guidelines, and we talk about Creative Commons. And public domain. We talk about all. We talk about them all. And then I went ahead and got the National Technology Standard as well. I looked in the textbook, kind of at the what technology standard to look at, and then I got that information from there. So one of the technology standards under technology research tools, students should use technology to locate, evaluate, and collect information from a variety of sources. So that would be putting their resources on that Padlet after searching for them, using technology tools to process data and report results, and to evaluate and select new information, resources, and technological innovations. So looking at evaluating, is a source actually within the public domain? Is that one that I can put on this project for the purpose of it? And then the learning objective. So at my campus, we always do I will, we will statements. So that's how I wrote the learning target or objective in this actual presentation for students. But the ABCDs of the objectives, I went ahead and kind of mapped those out as well. So the audience is 7th grade students. The behavior is demonstrating knowledge of copyright laws. The condition would be producing 3 examples of public domain resources. And the degree would be 100% of the time. They should be able to look at a resource and know correctly if it is like in public domain or not. All right, the next S is select strategies, technology, media, and materials. So instructional strategies, I'd be doing a mix of teacher-centered and student-centered. So teacher-centered would, of course, be that lecture presentation, and then modeling that as well. In my lecture, I actually go in and show them how I would go through the 4 questions of fair use with an example. And then student-centered. Internet, they're doing internet searches, they're doing resource production, they're creating something to share with one another. So the technology and media, they're going to need to be using their one-to-one laptops. In our campus, every student has a laptop. And my Google Slides presentation, the Padlet is something that is a tech feature that will be used, and the World Wide Web or Internet to do those searches for public domain as well. The materials. What's already available, Creative Commons and Google Slides is already there for me. I can modify to create paper options. I can also have extra laptops and chargers on hand. And then the new thing would be the Padlet. That might be new for some students, so I might have to go in and explain a little bit about what Padlet is, or I might have to walk around as students are working on that independent assignment and help them with that. All right, utilize technology, media, and materials. So I went through the 5 P's that are listed in the textbook. So the first 2 P's are preview and prepare materials. So that would be me reading through the articles and links, taking screenshots of needed information, and then making that actual Google Slides presentation. Preparing the environment. The library would need to be set up for classes to sit at tables in front of a screen for a presentation, as well as room to work on their laptops independently afterwards for the assignment. Preparing the learners. So an introduction or broad overview of the topic is what I include at the beginning of my presentation, and I also include in that presentation the rationale for how it relates to the real world, why it's important for them to understand copyright law, and that need to know the content. They need to understand this so that they can continue to be following those guidelines and not accidentally getting in trouble for something they might not have even known. And then provide learning experience. That big learning experience is that teacher-centered presentation. R, require learner participation. So these are the 4 areas in which our students would be participating and using that technology to do so. So research, students will search for resources for the Padlet, and they will use the Padlet as a resource for any research project or assignment moving forward. Problem solving. Students can use the Padlet to help them solve problems with using certain copyrighted material in the future. Practice. Students are repeating a similar exercise multiple times. I want them to get at least 3 public domain sources that they put on that Padlet. And then communication as well. Students can communicate with one another using the class Padlet, and that's almost a way for them to share and collaborate as well. All right, and then the last letter of that Assure model is the E for evaluate and revise. So I took a screenshot of my rubric that I designed for this, and the way that we set up rubrics usually at my school, I kind of just took an example, a template from that, and tweaked it for this. So on the left side, I always have the TEAC, and that's, again, that digital citizen TEAC that's focusing on copyright, laws, guidelines, Creative Commons, and public domain. And of course, the Padlet is specifically focusing on accessing those public domain resources. So we use the terminology on my campus. We're a project-based learning campus, so we do emerging, developing, proficient, and advanced, and our lowest for that is actually a 60, and it goes up by 10 points. If you get if you do not have evidence of what's in the emerging column, then that's just a missing, and you have a 0 until you make that assignment up, and then we can give you a 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I always look at the 3 first for proficient, and that's what I always tell my students first too, is look here, so you know exactly what you need to do that A. You can bump it up to a 4, but you also know what you need to do to get up to that A, because that's what everyone wants to strive for, is proficient. So I can do all the following. Find 3 different online resources that are in the public domain and display my resources on the class Padlet. And of course, in those descriptions for the students, I already explained how to display that properly. Okay, if a student was to find more than 3 sources, then they could get bumped up to a 4. That would be that difference there. Then on the flip side, if they cannot do both of those things, I can do all the following for a 2, so this would give them a 70. Find 2 different online resources. Maybe you can't find 3 and display them. And then a 1 would be only finding 1 resource and displaying it on the Padlet. If you didn't display anything on the Padlet, then that's an automatic 0 and missing. If you get 1, that's a 60, 2, 70, 3, 90. Put more than 3, that's 100. So pretty simple grading guidelines for both teachers and the students to follow. And then these are my resources for where I got like my standards from, and then I also put the textbook as well.